Hi there, I'm with Robby Besner, the Steve Jobs of infrared technology. Literally, we're in my third bedroom, in my portable sauna. We're going to talk about practical uses and talk about what I'm sitting in right now, but also his journey, his story with his daughter that had chronic Lyme disease and some of the technology breakthroughs that encompass that. So it's going to be an amazing interview. Stay tuned for it.
Welcome to the Detox Lyme and Health Podcast. Join Dr. J as he interviews experts focused on natural, holistic health solutions from around the world. In this podcast, the topics covered include Lyme disease, genetics, detox, nutrition, and much more. We believe in educating you and providing the tools you need to take your health into your own hands. And now, the man that simplifies the complex, your host, Dr. J. Davidson.
I'm with Robby Besner, the founder and owner of THERASAGE, infrared product company. Is that a good way to say it? Infrared product company?
Yeah, device company.
So a better intro for Robby would be that he's really the Steve Jobs of infrared technology. And the reason I say that, he's the innovator. He's the creative guy that's coming out and understanding things better and better from the infrared side of things. And it seems like there's a lot of little offshoot things that are trying to copy, and it's like, first of all, they can't keep up with you, but also it always comes back to who the original innovator is. So it's a pleasure to be interviewing on this podcast.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So how did, Robby, for our listener, how did you decide, hey, I'm going to start a sauna company or an infrared company?
Well, it started with a quest to really, it dates back to my daughter, who was the original impetus for us to even be searching for ways or solutions to help for detoxification. Was our original thing. And about 17 years ago, she contracted Lyme disease. And when she got sick, I have a pre-med background, and rather than focusing on the protocols, even though 17 years ago there weren't a lot of things written on, or Lyme literate doctors per se, we decided as a family not to focus on the particulars about the protocols, but in analyzing Lyme disease and chronic ailments, the secondary condition that often follows these diseases are high levels of toxicity. So I was just doing some research as to what were the most efficient ways to detox. And in those days, all that was sort of invasive formats like chelation and dialysis, or taking some kind of a pharmaceutical or supplement that would cause a chemical change to cause a cell to detox. And then I discovered that there are certain wavelengths of sun energy that actually will create a natural vibration in the body that creates a detox. And that's the infrared spectrum. So from there, I said, oh wow, now I found the holy grail, right? Except there weren't very many devices available in the marketplace that a consumer or a family could buy that could bring infrared into the home. So I started to develop them basically just for our family.
Okay.
But that turned into my wife and I realizing, of course, my daughter was the only one with Lyme disease or with chronic ailment or having challenges with detox. So as we saw successes with the way that the devices I was developing to harness infrared were helping her, we created this company called THERASAGE to bring that device development to the general public.
So in other words, you didn't wake up one day and was like, hey, honey, let's start an infrared company. It was just purely out of you wanting to help your daughter improve her health, in other words.
Right. And then we realized that we needed to do this. It was bigger than just us and our family. It needed to be brought to everyone. From a philanthropic point of view, it needed to be brought out to the health and wellness community.
Well, and I remember you telling me before too, Robby, that the doctors, how many different doctors did Julia see?
Well, in the full, at least 25.
25. Yeah. I mean, in that journey of, going to different practitioners, they were actually asking you, like, hey, can you make these for my patients too, right?
Right, sure. Well, that was another angle. I mean, we didn't even consider it from that point of view back then. And so we just, even though my wife and I we're sort of naturopaths and homeopaths as a family, and we believe in sort of a natural approach to health and wellness, it really brought us right into that genre. And in this journey of finding Lyme literate doctors to help our daughter with her condition, we realized that this is something that needed to be brought out and made more prominent or prevalent within the healthcare community. And we've seemed to create, now it's got a lot of momentum, but 12 years ago, 14 years ago, it was sort of an unsearched, this vibrational energy medicine category wasn't well accepted by the community, healthcare community. And now it's just a joy to see that people are gravitating to this format, just another tool for the toolbox in a way, Jay, to help people help themselves, in a natural healing way.
Yeah, which is, again, goes to my Steve Jobs of infrared. You were so far ahead of the curve, even thinking about, okay, you want to help your daughter with detoxification 18 years ago, like that word wasn't even brought up, and now we know science-wise that the biofilm that lime, makes will have heavy metals in it, and the biofilm that bugs will use to protect themselves, will have heavy metals, toxins in it, that parasites will absorb heavy metals, that lime can live inside parasites, and it's like this three-way, now we're understanding more and more about how important detoxification is, especially even in the Lyme world or in the pathogen world. But 18 years ago, that's incredible. So it was a couple years ago, probably 2-3 years ago, where I met with Julia, just did kind of initial assessment and assessed where she was at and gave her some recommendations and kind of first protocol, and then shortly after that she actually passed, and that's been, as of the time that we're filming this right now, has that been almost 3 years?
About 2.25 years.
2.25. So when that happened, obviously, is it safe to say Lyme was really what happened with her body?
Yeah, I would definitely say that. In fact, it's a small story. It's I'm so passionate about it, but there's a relationship between the medical examiners and the community. They're very highly regarded as probably they actually trope the police department in terms of the organization in a community. And when Julia passed away, my faith in my religion, it's not it's sort of prohibited for there to be an autopsy performed. So we had a little challenge because it's not common that a 30-year-old will pass away unless there's been some intervention or maybe abuse of drugs or something, that's more obvious. And for Julia, she basically just didn't wake up one morning. And so we had a challenge for a day because the examiner wanted to do further work with her, and we were objecting to it, So this examiner said he was willing to bet his 25-year career that there was some interaction with drugs. And so finally, we were able to negotiate a position where we allowed them to do a toxicology report, take fluids from her and so forth, which came back 6 weeks later to show that there was absolutely no drug intervention. So why I say this is that basically she passed away. Now, why did she pass away? It's a big question. And without an autopsy, we went to the examiner and we said, she's had basically a 17-year challenge with Lyme disease, and we feel that was a major contributor to the reason why she passed. So he said, well, just show me a reason to write that as, because he was going to put down on her death certificate that she died of natural causes, but that doesn't seem very, very right given the circumstances. Yeah. So I brought in a box that I could hardly lift with all of her medical records over the 17 years of all the doctors and exams and so forth that she had taken. And he pulled the first folder off and he said, this is all I need. We ruled by committee, but actually we fought hard to have her official cause of death to be Lyme disease, because she's one of only 100 people in the country that has that status in a way. And the reason why I say that to you is because we need for people to understand, the world needs to understand that you can die from Lyme disease if it's left untreated. And people aren't really taking it that seriously at this point. Of course, the families that are, and you would know this better than anyone, Jay, because you built a career around Lyme disease. that the families that are intimate with it, they understand the severity of it. But it's so downplayed when it gets past that centralized position, that family-centric position that the world really needs to know. And that's one side of it. The other side is, fortunately, not that to the people, but a lot of celebrities have been stricken, and their families have been stricken by Lyme disease, and so they're a lot more in the public eye, and they're becoming a lot more outspoken. And I think that that's just terrific, because there really needs to be more attention brought to this. Agreed.
And I mean, I know we recently talked about this, because I even told you, like, I still had guilt. I met with her, and then I'm like, here's recommendations, and then apparently she, showed you and Melody, your wife, and it's like, this guy wants me to,
not eat for 30 days and just drink bone broth. And she said, no effing way is she going to do that. And yeah, I know. This is another thing about Lyme disease in general, and especially the journey we were on. At some point, what happens is that each of the doctors you see that has a different protocol, they'll offer you something, and you'll get some moderate success from it. And that's the uptick. And then, so they go into remission, and then there's a setback because they have a reoccurrence or another episode. Mm-hmm. And so health-wise, over 12 years, Julia basically was kind of almost even. Her body was broken down on the inside, but from the outside, in the last 5 years, she was the strongest and healthiest and happiest, and that's why I was kind of shocked that she just didn't wake up one day, but we don't call that card. Someone else is playing that one. But generally speaking, what happens with psychologically is that every time you try and you get that hope from the doctor and it doesn't pan out, long term, then you make a new low psychologically. So after 25 tries, she was really gun shy. When I brought you to her, I said, you got to talk to Jay. He really knows what he's doing, and he's got a very interesting approach to this, and he's got some amazing success story with his wife and people around him. And I said, this is, you have to go with someone with a track record that knows what they're doing and has success with it. And so that's why I introduced you. But unfortunately, she didn't take all the things that you suggested at the time, and that's just how the cards fell.
Yeah, I mean, it was a quick reminder of that. Life is just so precious, and that that day that we think, oh, I'll just do it tomorrow or next week, or it's just that reminder to take action. And obviously, it was her time, and you guys have been healing with your family. And at what point did you decide, hey, let's move forward and let's continue this infrared company? Mm-hmm. Or, I mean, why not just close the doors?
Yeah, we had a moment with that. Some people say, like, did we jump the shark? Did we lose our purpose? And it took about 30 seconds, but, we had Julia as the box model. She, I don't think you ever came to our showroom, but it was sort of a museum. We had wall murals of her, everything the whole reason that we had THERASAGE, we built THERASAGE, was basically two purposes: to build better devices in the infrared category, and or to find doctors like yourself that could give us clues as to help us manage our healthcare. Both of those things were our main purpose. Now, and we built this, basically the whole company was really to be given to her to run, and we were grooming her along that way. Now it's a legacy for her, but I mean, I think that we thought about it, and then we got a phone call from a customer and a patient that was thanking us because our devices changed their lives and helped them, and that's how quick.
And that's all you needed.
Yeah, I mean, the philanthropic strides that we've made in helping families and helping doctors help families has been so much greater than any monetized way that you could look at our activity, that it'll keep driving us. It's what it's about.
It is. So let's switch gears a little bit into the technology side, infrared. So my wife, daughter, and I, we just went to the San Diego County Fair yesterday, which I texted you as we're setting this up, and I mean, literally walking through the exhibitor booths, it's, this wooden sauna company, that sauna company, and then there was another sauna company where it was literally your body sticks out, wooden one, you know, and I'm just walking by, I'm like, if they just knew about THERASAGE, that this would be, you know, so much easier. So there's a lot, I feel like there's a lot in the sauna category. Infrared's becoming more and more popular. What do we need to understand about infrared? You always hear about far infrared,
Right.
but is there other things that are of benefit besides just the FIR, the far infrared?
Sure. And infrared is a spectrum of sun energy.
Okay.
And so if you were looking at the full spectrum, there's actually 3 wavelengths within the infrared category. And they have different names. One is NIR, NIR, and basically that is frequencies that will be at skin surface to around 3 centimeters deep.
Okay.
Then there's the mid-range, MIR, which is basically 3 to 8 centimeters. And then the FAR, which is the deeper reaching wavelength. And depending on your individual BMI, your body makeup, chemistry, they can penetrate maybe 3.5 to 4 inches deep.
So near is more surfacey,
Right.
mid goes a little deeper, and then far infrared goes the farthest into the body.
Correct.
Okay.
And each of those wavelengths does different things, physically to the body. So as a company, philanthropically, when I started doing research, I decided to create what we call 3-wave or full spectrum devices, because we want to capture all the wavelengths. The science, even though science on infrared is more than 100 years old, and Albert Einstein in 1942 did a thesis on sun energy and how basically all living beings, plant and animal kingdom, needs this wavelength spectrum in order to thrive.
Really?
Oh yeah.
1942?
42. And then on the post of that, he also said that everything in life had a frequency. And then Royal Rife picked up on that, and he decided to look at the anatomic structure of everything that's living and define within a category, almost like a dictionary, what wavelength or frequency is associated with what animal, plant, insect, bacteria, and so forth. And and then, of course, the science has been picked up, like NASA uses infrared frequency and infrared technology in space shuttle. The hospitals use it in neonatal care. It's got a broad spectrum of applications.
Okay.
In fact, when I started researching devices before I started making them, the only group that was using infrared frequency were sports medicine doctors. And they were using the infrared to stimulate recovery after an injury for the players when they came off the field. So they'd shoot them up with some cocktail, and then they'd throw an infrared device on them, and that would create a physiological shift that would help them heal faster.
Okay.
So there are a lot of applications. We're a device management company, so we're developing, we have more than 30 different applications currently. But there are some popular ones that the public buys and also the doctors use that are integrated, and they're terrific and they're affordable, and everyone should have one is the way we feel about it.
Yeah, I mean, I'll get emails and questions all the time, and one of the topics I'll get emails on is sauna. Do you have your favorite, or what's the best, sauna company? I'm like, THERASAGE, THERASAGE.com. Call Robbie, talk with them. It's, right now at the time that we're recording, a full spectrum portable sauna, about $800. Correct. $800, and it's low EMF. It's super easy. I mean, so when I think of saunas, the sauna category, you've got the dry, Finnish hot sauna where it gets really hot. I think of it like Death Valley, so it's super hot. And it makes you sweat because it's like surface heat. But then you have this infrared category, and most seems to be focused in the far infrared. Right. And it doesn't get as hot in the sauna, but it warms you up from the inside, because it's penetrating. I love the infrared category. I love the full spectrum side of things because it just seems more natural, like what you would get from the sunshine. So I kind of toss the surface heat category out. Then when you get into the far infrared or the full spectrum, you get wooden and portable. And I'm not really a huge fan of the wooden ones. I think, and this is just my personal opinion, I want to see what you think too, but I love the portable sauna idea where your head can stick out, because your head's, I feel like, a little bit more heat sensitive, can't handle heat as well if you're like in a big box. And then my other thing is, well, a lot of the saunas that are made with wood are, they're putting like different stains and glues and things. And then, you know, there's companies that make them without that stuff. But then I'm like, you read books like, gosh, who was that lady? It was Detoxify or Die. Sherry Rogers. And she, you know, she's going through research of like, oh yeah, you use, you know, far infrared saunas. Research has shown that asbestos, DDT, heavy metals, like all this stuff comes out of you.
Right.
And I'm thinking, okay, well, if that comes out of you and then absorbs in the wood, does that mean that next time you go in or somebody else goes in, you can re-intoxify? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, I don't know about this wood thing. And then, you know, found out about your guys' company, and I'd had a different company's far infrared, and, you know, got yours, and I'm like, okay, this is it. It's full spectrum, low EMF, it's cheaper. Like, it's a no-brainer. And then, you know, of course, I see people at the San Diego County Fair, and I'm like, why doesn't Robbie have a booth here and just take over the, you know, but that's the goal, is to get this message out there. So,
right.
So what is your opinion about portable saunas versus the wooden saunas versus like the finish, you know? I mean,
Sure.
Is really most of the health healing benefits you feel personally in the full spectrum infrared?
Yeah, that's without a doubt.
Okay.
And as I was alluding to earlier, the science on understanding exactly the benefit of having all three wavelengths, the body utilizing all three, is still evolving.
Okay.
But we clearly clinically see a major difference between just the FAR and having full spectrum. That being said, what you pointed out was right. There is both the finish format and the steam room type is what's called convection heat. That means that you have an element that heats the air, and the ambient air then heats up the body. And what infrared is a wavelength, and so it doesn't heat the ambient air. It actually vibrates or resonates. We call it bioresonance because it's resonating with the water inside of your body.
Okay.
So it's a wavelength that's penetrating in. And, you know, most people don't realize that there's a layer of fat that's just under your skin that's designed to protect your insides from extreme temperatures, either heat or cold. And and that's a layer of fat. And so, but most fat molecule is made up mostly of water. And so the wavelength, within the infrared spectrum, there's a frequency that harmonizes or resonates at the same wavelength as the water inside of us. And so the wavelength seamlessly penetrates through that protection layer. And then it's now seeking the most dense parts of our bodies, which is our muscle mass or organ tissues. And the frequencies actually go and they harbor in those areas. And then they create a vibration. The vibration gives out a warmth. And that's what you said earlier about an inside heat or an internal heat.
Yep.
So we call it a biothermal because it's creating a heat inside of us.
Okay.
And that really creates the sort of the platform for a whole bunch of physiological changes, because if I'm warming up an organ or I'm warming up a muscle group, and those are generally the more vascular parts of your body, now I've got a warmed muscle, and the muscle is warming up the vessel, and the vessel is now expanding because of what's called vasodilation, as you know. And so vasodilation occurs for two reasons with infrared frequency. One, from the warmth, and secondly, infrared frequency actually emits a transient gas that's called nitric oxide, and that's also a vasodilator. So we've got two major events that are occurring that are changing the vascular structure of the body, increasing blood flow.
Makes sense.
Yeah, and so our devices, most of our devices are cleared as FDA medical Class 2 devices. So we've gone through all the screening, and, you know, they call
the fun stuff?
Yeah. I mean, I want to open up a vein when I talk about how much money and time we spent on that. But it's a necessary evil, especially if we're working with the medical community, because many of the doctors really need to understand that some of the agencies are there to protect the people and also protect the medical community. And so, because infrared is a category that the FDA feels that they can opine or cover or feel like they've got some say in the matter of how it's managed, we actually go along with all the registrations and that are necessary. And it's viewed it's very popular within the U.S., but when you come outside of the U.S. and they look at the medical devices that are cleared by FDA, they're even stronger viewed outside the U.S., because that seems to be the platform that most of the world looks at as for credentialing. Okay. So back to our story. So there is distinct differences between the wooden formats and the portable format. And we have many millionaires that have Park Avenue apartments that prefer that's when we did make wooden ones initially, but we did discover something that you did highlight a few minutes ago, and that is the woods. What most people don't realize, by law, all woods that come into the U.S. that are foreign have to be sprayed with DDTs, so that there's chemicals that are leaching into those woods. And the reason why is because the U.S. government doesn't want woods or plants or food sources from outside the country that have foreign bacteria or foreign insects to come into the U.S. So now I did...
Say that again. You said all woods that come outside of the U.S.
All woods that are imported into the U.S. have to be sprayed by law with DDTs. Okay? So Robby was really smart. See, before I found a company in Bentonoff, Iowa, that makes our wooden saunas currently, this dates back about 12 years ago, I farmed my woods in Canada. So Canadian cedar, sent it to China, had the woods tooled, had the mechanics and electronics put in, had them repackaged, and then sent it to the U.S. So I was really smart because I had my wood sprayed twice, out of Canada and out of China into the U.S., right?
How quickly did you find that one out?
Well, I got about 9 months in. I mean, I knew that I wanted the wooden sauna category, but I wasn't aware of that. And then as we became more embraced into the medical community, and then the doctors were presenting to us more cases of people that were chemical sensitive, it became really, and I became cognizant that in fact the woods were being sprayed. Then I stopped importing my woods, and I searched for a domestic company that I could work with that would use our specifications and build the cabinets and the electronics the way we wanted. And we found an amazing group in Bentonoff, Iowa. The woods are natural aspen wood. It's made in America. There are some other unusual attributes to our format, but that's probably the most global thing to think about, because you can buy a wooden sauna at SportsMart, at Dick's,
Costco,
yeah, exactly,
online,
for about $1,000, but you're going to have a challenge because of the woods. So that's the first thing. The second thing you pointed out was definitely true, that the woods will absorb toxins, and one of the things that we try to teach when we're in front of a group is best practices. And so what I'll always ask for people to do, whether it's using it within your family or using one that's in a community, a sauna, is to sit on a towel. In an infrared sauna environment, actually even any sweating environment, but let's just talk about infrared because that's what we're here to talk about. If Jay, we know each other for many years now, but if I didn't know you, if let's say someone in the room here like Jason or Amanda, I didn't know them from Adam before you introduced them to me, and we were sitting across from one another in a movie theater, and I had my seat, and if I didn't pay for that particular seat location, and Amanda was sitting next to me, and she was hacking with a cough and a cold and sneezing and so forth, the first thing I'd be thinking is I'm going to catch her stuff, and I can't focus on the movie I'm here to see, and so I should just pick myself up and move to another seat, or ask her to move, which I would never do because she's bigger than me. But the truth is that
she is strong.
If you were to go into a community infrared sauna, and the person coming out of that sauna was sneezing and coughing and doing the same thing, most people would think the same thing. I'm not getting into that cabinet. I'm not getting into that portable sauna because I'm going to catch that the germs, or catch the whatever it is, the virus. But truth be told, nothing living, no nanotoxin can live in an infrared environment. But what can I catch from Amanda or from Jason or from yourself? If I'm sitting in that sauna, I'm sweating and my body is opened.
Toxins.
Yeah, so I could potentially upload your toxins, which I don't want because you're working hard to get those poisons out. So the last thing I want to do is I'm there to get my poisons out, not acquire new ones. So best practices are always to sit on a towel, wrap yourself in a towel. Usually I ask for the customer or patient to grab an extra hand cloth, and as you're sweating, just wipe that sweat off of you, because there's been a study where they analyzed a drop of sweat from an same individual going into a hot rock sauna, a Swedish steam room, a Finnish steam, dry heat, and an infrared sauna, and there's 85% more toxin in that same drop of sweat, or a drop of sweat from the same individual from the infrared environment. Wow. So it's clear that vibration is really pulling out a lot of poison.
Well, it makes sense too, because I think of fat as that's the body's way to store toxins. So for those people that are like weight loss resistant, I can't lose weight, I tried this diet, I'm exercising, nothing's working. It's like, well, let's look at the toxicity side. In sauna, I feel like is a great way to mobilize things for your skin. Heather used to not sweat. Mm-hmm. She didn't have to wear deodorant, which we thought was a blessing. It's like, oh my gosh, you smell great, you never sweat. And then we realized that, no, that's really bad. Like you don't sweat, things don't go through your pores, that's a pathway clogged, toxicity can build up. So I think one of the fastest ways to increase the sweating pathway is infrared.
Right.
I mean, would you agree with that?
Totally. And usually that's a question that comes up often. I teach at Hippocrates, it's a health institute in West Palm Beach. And so I talk to the guests, and I also teach to their education program. And that's one of the things that comes up, a topic that comes up, it's I don't sweat. And the first thing I do is I correct all the women in the room, and I say, women don't sweat anyway, they glisten. So we should get the term proper.
Brownie points.
Right. So now that we know that they're glistening, some of the women say, I don't glisten. So then we go on to talk about why that is. And the number one reason is generally they're dehydrated. And you're the first one that'll speak to that, because dehydration is a problem. We're a country that drinks a lot of water, but we don't cellular hydrate. That's a problem. And the second thing, if you're dehydrated, then all symptoms seem to be accelerated or more concentrated or more pronounced. So hydration is a key, and particularly with infrared sauna, we're promoting sweating. So we ask for, as a best protocol, to best practice is to drink 8 to 10 ounces about an hour before, and then about the same amount afterwards. And the reason why you drink water afterwards is because we're purposely looking to kind of dislodge the toxins and their relationship to fat. 70% of all environmental poisons are stored in your fat. So you think about that, so the water afterwards is mostly just to kind of dilute down the new toxic load, so there's less burden on your organs. So many of the patients we see are chronic and that we talk to, and so their bodies are compromised anyway. And what we want to try to do is give them a soft landing by using the infrared technology, and we can do that, but we have to kind of step into it, tiptoe into it. And oftentimes when I'm teaching, I use the analogy of like climbing a mountain. And so when getting toxic, unless you've been thrown into, and actually this happened recently, I mentioned this in one of my presentations, and someone in the audience said, I was at Chernobyl, I was there. So unless you are irradiated like by something like an accident, like Chernobyl, or chemical sensitivity, like you're in a cornfield and someone flies over and sprays you with Roundup or something, generally speaking, you get toxic sort of very gradually, right? And climbing a mountain, you don't do it in 3 giant steps. It's tiptoeing or a step at a time. So coming down the toxic mountain is sort of the same way. We want to kind of do it slowly, and then the body is much more open. The organs are freed up. They're less compromised, and so we can do that very easily. And the infrared sauna is a perfect device for that.
Well, that's a good segue. Let's transition rooms. Let's go into my third little bedroom of the sauna, and then we can get a little hands-on.
Terrific. Great.
All right, so we moved rooms. Apologize for maybe the not best lighting in here. It's kind of a tiny little third bedroom. I got a pretty small house here in San Diego, 1,200 square feet. So this is actually my sauna in the third bedroom / sauna room. So just wanted to get in and be a little practical. It's pretty small, which is nice. So the sides basically fold in. It folds flat, correct? And then fits in a bag.
Right. Comes with a carrying case.
So if you want to move rooms,
very easy to do.
Basement, upstairs, wherever.
Yep.
Versus the wood ones, I know some people have had issues that the panels are too big, doesn't even fit down the stairs. So I like the portability of this. But basically, when you get this, it comes with a foldable chair. Now this is an upgraded chair, correct?
Correct. And we use these kind of chairs for either larger sized persons, like it could be a heavier person or a taller person, because the legs are adjustable. I'm not a big person, but I prefer sitting on this and using this in my own house. The portable one is perfect. It's perfect for portability. But in terms of structure and support, I prefer this format, which is a chair that's used and very common, found in a shower stall. Use it for that.
I was going to say, what do you call me, big here, Robbie?
No. It's just a personal choice thing,
So you've got two different chair options. Basically, the foldable one comes with it, and then if you want this chair, it's an additional one.
Right, okay. Exactly.
So you basically climb in the sauna. Do you, the remote space is right here. There's literally one power cable you plug into the wall.
Correct.
Everything's connected. And this one is called the Thera 360?
Correct. And the reason why we named that is because there's 5 panels. So there's one that's located on either side and behind you.
Okay.
There's one that's underneath your feet. And then there's a 5th panel right up front that's used also for structure and is also used to bring infrared in. So when you're sitting where you are, Jay, there's virtually wavelengths all around you. You're bathing in the frequencies.
So all 4 sides plus my feet.
Correct.
Awesome. And it's got one remote, which is super easy. So you can turn it on. And I hesitate on turning it on because it's kind of a small room, and I'm probably going to start sweating pretty quickly here, but I'll turn it on. And it can go as low as, looks like it goes as low as 100 degrees.
Correct.
And then it goes as high as 170.
Correct.
So is that temperature what is going to feel like in here, or like what it makes the body?
Yeah, when you measure the temperature inside the cabin, it'll get up as high as 170 degrees.
Okay. And then you can set the time, so you can set it as low as, looks like 10 minutes.
Right.
And it goes up by 10s up to
90
minutes. Okay.
Right. It'll default, when you turn it on, it starts at 150 and 60 minutes. Okay. But generally, when you first get started with this, our recommendation would be a 30-minute session at 1:30 or 1:40 to start with. And that's mostly just to sort of the first week or two for your body to acclimate to the frequencies, get a good sweat going. We'd love to see you do this at least once a day. And what I prefer is starting my day with it, because when if my last meal is 7 o'clock in the evening, let's say, then I wake up and now it's 12 hours, so I'm basically fasting through the night. And if I don't eat right away and I jump into the sauna, my organs are rested, there's no food processing going on, there's no burden, to digest things. And so it's kind of like what I think it's the optimal time to do it if your schedule could permit. Some people say, I can't do it first thing. I get up at 5 o'clock as it is. I drive a truck or I'm doing something that I need to get out. But so do it when you can do it. I'll take anything because anything is better than nothing. And this type of format, you always get something from it. But if your schedule could permit, the optimal thing for me would be to start my day with this.
And I love that too, that idea first thing in the morning, because I feel like when you wake up, you want to warm your core body temperature up the most right away in the morning time to help kind of cortisol production and get that going. So I love, that's my preferred time. When schedule allows, I'll almost always do it in the morning as well too. So some benefits sauna-wise. So you can clear toxins out.
Right.
It warms your core temperature up. And I think this is probably one of the more important ones. With pathogens, they lower your body temperature.
Right.
So that lymph, cardiovascular fluids, they get stagnant. So when you warm the core up, then fluids will flow better, correct?
Yes, totally. And the other thing is that if I can get your core, which is an internal temperature, towards the 102 degrees Fahrenheit, at 102, there's a very strong die-off on most bacteria and airborne viruses.
Oh, really?
Some cancers can't thrive above 105 degrees Fahrenheit. But as you pointed out earlier, your head and your brain is much more sensitive to temperature than your body is. So that's why I love this format, because your head is out and your head is basically at room temperature. So if we're sitting here and let me just fix that collar behind you. This unit comes with 2 of these zip-out collars, so you can use one and wash one and wear one. And then there's a support pole. I know it's behind you, but if you put that pole in place, it would actually, bring this apart.
Here.
Yep, there you go.
I don't know if you'll be able to hear me because my microphone's in the sauna, but
I can hear you.
We'll open it up just a crack.
There we go.
For the sound guy.
So now, I mean, you're an average built person, but even for a larger person, it's amazing. We get guys that are 6'3", 6'4", and they go, "There's no way I'm going to fit in there." And then they get in, and they go, "I can't believe how much room they actually have."
Oh, there's tons of room. Yeah. I usually actually don't even put the stick up. Like I usually just leave it just like this.
Yep.
And I love this. Can read. Of course, We're in the Facebook scrolling world. You can get your phone, iPad. I mean,
wait you see, we've got an accessory. It's a little platform that sits here with an articulating arm, and you can put your laptop on there, and that's what I use in the morning. These are all things that are coming out.
That's going to be dangerous, Robbie. More time for work.
Well, I don't know. You know, I do my meditation in the morning when I'm in here, and we brought the brain tap in. That's a guided meditation. That's part of this. And we're also accessorizing with ozone and with aromatherapy. Those are all modules that we're coming out with.
And that's huge. You just said that this material, it's like a satin?
Yes, exactly. So it's antimicrobial, or there's nothing that can really live in there, both between the frequencies and the materials itself. It won't harbor any kind of mold or yeast or anything like that, anything airborne.
And it can also withstand ozone.
Yes, but now not the hospital-grade ozone that you might be familiar with, where they use insufflators in different formats. We're coming out with a special device that doesn't exist. We're making it. And it actually will add more oxygen. The one that we're testing now is 500 milligrams per cubic inch per hour. So you'll get a hint of ozone. And there's still science on this, and we're already testing it clinically. But basically, when you're in that format and you're sweating and you're opening up the skin, which is a breathing organism too, you're letting out poison, right? But at the same time, you're allowing an exchange to bring oxygen in. And one other thing, like we mentioned earlier, infrared frequency will generate transient gas nitric oxide. Well, it does two things. One thing it does is vasodilate. The other thing it does is it triggers the hemoglobin to grab more oxygen when it's available. So think about that. Now, if we just add an extra O3, into that cabin, and not a lot of it, but your skin is breathing, and now you're breathing in that extra O, and the blood is already saying, wow, give me some more O, and we're providing it, we're feeling that you don't need a lot of that hospital-grade ozone per se, because your body is already looking for it. And so we're going to create that platform with this, and we're pretty excited about the possibilities.
That's so cool. So, I mean, literally you can do portable sauna at home. You can could you do aromatherapy, like, you know, basically it's diffuse essential oils.
Right.
And ozone at the same time, or would you pick one or the other?
No, I do both.
Okay. So ozone, essential oil, portable sauna, I mean...
Guided meditation. Wow. It's a full lifestyle.
Now you're starting your day off with a good...
Yeah, you know, why not? Who else deserves it better than you? And I can do all that at least in 30 minutes. Now, of course, if we're treating cancer or something that's chronic, there's protocols that are a little bit more involved, but you titrate out to them. And so, like for Julia, it took her 6 weeks before she could sit in a sauna for an hour. But her body was greatly compromised between the chemicals and the various different medications she took, plus the die-off. She had dead Lyme in her. She had biotoxins, neurotoxins, and biofilms, and God knows what else, you know?
Yeah.
So it takes a lot to work through that, because by the time a chronic person shows symptoms, they've got a lot of stuff going on inside. Their body's inflamed. And so we have to kind of calm all that down. And it takes a while to do that in a sort of responsible way, I guess is the best way to put it.
So one thought I had too, we're kind of talking about the benefits there. From my understanding, infrared spectrum will also, so like your water molecules, H2O, will cluster together. Infrared will help to break those apart, meaning that the water is more absorbable and movable in the body, correct?
Yep. And actually, that's another great topic, because I got inspired by a research scientist, PhD, named Gerald Pollack. He wrote a book called The Fourth Phase of Water.
Fourth Phase of Water.
And so that really triggered something for me, because he identified that there's a frequency within the infrared spectrum that actually will restructure and reorder the water inside of you.
Restructure water?
Yes.
Okay.
So it makes the body, internal water from that sauna, more bioavailable to the cell. Wow, that's a big thing.
That's huge.
Because I'm always searching for the reasons why our technology works so great. And that was such an important thing, because water is the transient, it basically occupies, I mean, if you drink a fair amount of water, you're 72% maybe. Your brain is like 81%, your cell is like 98% water. And so having the proper structure of water is so key, because water gets minerals and nutrients into the cell and allows the cell to get waste product out. So if the water isn't bioavailable, if it's not structured properly, then the cell's impaired, and then you know what happens after that. Everything starts to break down. So, yeah, the sauna's got a lot of things going on.
Yeah, well, it's
infrared.
Like, it's almost as if more research comes out, the more we understand why this seems to work so well. So talk to us about a little bit about like what's inside here. So you said there's panels. So
Right.
There's not like any space heaters or anything.
No, that's correct. We use a format that the actual perimeter of the sauna has heated panels on them that generate the frequency, full spectrum.
Okay.
And peppered on each panel is our tourmaline stones. There's 18. There's a reason why we picked the stones that we did and the number of stones that we did, because the tourmaline will actually bring negative ion into the cabin, and what that does is it creates sort of an earthing effect.
Okay.
So the cabin itself is electrically wired to be earthing. So we use the grounding electrical proper wiring of the home or wherever you have it plugged in to bring the earth charge into that cabin. And most of us are positive charged. So what we're looking for is a negative charge to balance out the electric charge of the body, so there's better communication, better. Your whole neurological system is electrically driven. So if there's an imbalance, if you're more positive than negative, as most of us are, then you need that negative charge to balance that out. And so most of the big naturopaths are saying we need more negative charge in our body, and that's what they're looking for in our lives. So we can get it.
Tourmaline.
Yeah, tourmaline does that, and we have a special tourmaline that we farm. We search all over the world for the best stones, and so that's part of what our technology incorporates: gemstone technology to bring the energies of these stones into our fields, so that we can heal more naturally.
Is the foot thing like a grounding?
The entire
as well?
cabin is a grounding mat.
Okay.
So you're getting negative earth charge.
Which is part of why it's so low EMF, like the fact that it's...
That's a big thing. The EMF is a big thing. And so, I've been interviewed on EMF, and we've created some products that are EMF protectors. But mostly the thing about EMF, and it's part of me because I had this dream or this concept theory that if the body has to choose between EMF, which is a high oscillating frequency that's basically man-made. Anything electrical or battery operated generates an electromagnetic field. Okay? So we make these fields, and they oscillate at a very high frequency, and the body has its own frequency. So if you're in that sauna and you're in an environment that it gives you infrared, which we've defined as being very healing and very important for the body, and at the same time you're given EMF because it's electrical, you plug it in. What's your body going to choose? To defend itself against the EMF or to receive the IR? So I had this idea, and I said, you know what, I don't really know. This was 8 years ago. And I said, I don't know, but I know I don't want Jay's body to have to choose from one to the other. So I just did a whole bunch of research and created technology that remediates the EMF. So in all of our devices, you get it's no EMF, but we write low EMF because the FDA thinks that no is too absolute of a word.
Yep.
So there's very little or low EMF in our devices. And so now you don't have to choose. You just get the pure healing effects of infrared, full spectrum.
So cool.
Yeah, pretty cool, huh?
It's it's making me want to shut the camera off and let me sauna right now.
That's what we're hoping, that everybody gets inspired, because they need to understand these little nuances. And there's a lot of science and there's a lot of technology in here, but ultimately for the consumer and the patient, we just want them to get in, hit a button, turn it on, enjoy their life, and we've talked about this to many clinicians. Their number one concern of many doctors is the compliance. They spend money with me, I give them protocols, they go home, they use them for a week, then they sort of drop off and they come back complaining, how come they're not feeling better a month later? I spent all this money with you. And it's a challenge. I feel for the doctors because they're trying the hardest they can, but they can only meet the patient halfway, right? So now what I love about our devices is that you get a visceral response. You feel good. You're engaging the patient. They're sitting in there. They feel like they're taking more charge of their own health care, And every day they incrementally get a little better. You're pulling poisons out, environmental poisons that you may have acquired, over the years. Some are from the toxic side of medications that you take for the good reasons. And ultimately, you still have this challenge. And so for an individual to be able to leave the practitioner, go home, besides doing the protocol, just have a device that can make them feel good incrementally every day, get more energy, get a better night's sleep, less pain, wow, it's just... And so what happens in the compliance discussion is that when they're using these kinds of devices and they're feeling better about themselves and they're taking more charge, it subconsciously, they're going, wow, if Dr. J told me to do this protocol, he said, use this device, and I'm getting a lot out of the device, then I must really do well with the protocol as well.
Yeah.
And they stay more compliant. Better result for everybody.
Which
ultimately, that's the goal.
Yeah, what
right?
matters more than just improving your health.
That's the game. That's what we're here for.
So I just want to thank you so much for taking time to dive into the infrared technology side of things, get a little more practical. Sitting in here, I'm already getting hot. It's this little room, I feel sweaty, but people can find you THERASAGE.com.
Right.
THERASAGE is THERASAGE, right?
Correct.
So
correct.
THERASAGE.com, and this would basically just be the Thera 360 sauna, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
So definitely check that out. I think a great goal or phrase that we really should start wrapping our head around is that every household should have a portable full spectrum or 3-wave sauna at their house so they can actually use it. So I think it's definitely doable, super affordable, and probably one of the best purchases we've ever made. So highly recommend check it out. Thank you so much for your time, Robbie.
My pleasure. Thanks,
and I'll make sure to have him on again to cover some more things as he keeps coming out and developing things and explaining products as well. So we'll see you guys soon.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. If you found this podcast valuable, feel free to share with others. The information in this podcast is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease. Please seek the advice of a healthcare professional before changing your health program or embarking on a new one. To find more information and additional resources, please visit us on drjdavidson.com. That's drjdavidson.com. That's drjaydavidson.com.